Hey guys, this is Blue. So today we hit the 1 year anniversary of the Netflix version of TFTF, which was released last year on May 11th. And so now that we've had the game again for a year, I just wanted to do a bit of a retrospective review. And I use the word retrospective intentionally because I am treating the game now as if it is in its final form. Because as we've discussed, I've talked about this in a few videos, the game is dead. We haven't had any new content in months, and so I am just going to do this review based upon my experience over the past year and assuming that there is nothing further that's going to come in terms of content or bots or whatever. If they surprise us, that's great. But as I've said, I have no expectations at this point, so I'm acting as if this is the sort of final version of the Netflix TFTF experience. And first of all, I should say that the fact that we've had the game again at all has been fantastic, right? When the game came back last May after it had been shut down in January of 2023, it was a huge shock and a very welcome surprise. None of us ever thought we'd ever be able to play again, and it's been a real joy overall to be able to play again over the past year, to play with a lot of my former teammates and friends from the old game. That's been a fantastic experience. And overall, even though there are some crucial differences between this version and the old version of the game, a lot of it is still fundamentally the same, you know? So I just want to walk through a few things because of the fact that, interestingly, there are still players finding this game. I hear from them. There are even still some veterans from the old days who have come back in the past few months, obviously in small numbers, but they exist. And so I just want to give my thoughts on playing over the past year, as well as a bit of advice for any new people or returning players. And so, like I said, it's been great playing again for the past year. The heart of the new game really fundamentally was the story, right? We had 6 acts instead of 4. The story ended up acting very much in a similar way to the time slides from the old game, in the sense that we were getting some more content every few weeks. And overall, I enjoyed the story. Yeah, it was pretty easy overall. There were only a few difficult lanes. It did get repetitive, but it was nice because it gave us something to look forward to every couple of weeks. It was new content. The rewards were really good, especially in the later acts. You know, it was nice going through the story. And they did this over the course of 8 months, right? In the end, they had 8.5 months of content planned, which ran from mid-May of last year until late January of this year, and then there's been nothing since then. But it was really fun going through the story. Besides that, we got a new AM map, which was very welcome, especially considering we were on the same final map in the Kabam days for several years. And the new map has been fun, and I think most veterans would agree that it's more difficult than the previous map. On the downside of that, though, is very clear in the sense that they didn't give us any way to farm for revives, no Titan mission. You can't buy them from the raid store, which meant that you've had to spend hundreds of energon for a single revive, which is really kind of ridiculous and has certainly been disappointing. But it's been fun, you know, having a new AM map to run with. Obviously, at this point, after a year, it's pretty stale, but at least we had that novelty. We had the excitement of a new AM map. We got 2 new bots in the form of Dead End and Chromia, both of which have actually been pretty fun to play with. The downside there is that the Bayverse bots did not return because of licensing or whatever reason. You know, we had 7 or 8 Bayverse bots in the old game. They're not here now, you know, which means that overall there are fewer bots to play with as compared to the old days. And then in terms of the gameplay, you know, just the 3D combat system, the very fast-paced gameplay, the fact that you actually do need to know what you're doing, at least at the highest levels of the game, in order to do well. That's all still there. The downside of that is that all of the bugs and the glitches and the nonsense that we had to deal with for years, none of those glitches, by the way, were ever fixed almost none of them anyway. Those are all still in the game, you know, and so that can certainly be frustrating and really irritating, and you're definitely going to die sometimes because of stupid nonsense the opponent can do that you cannot do. That's all still there, but if you really enjoyed the fighting in the old game, you're going to love it in the new version as well. And in terms of Netflix in general, I mean, besides the fact that they're clearly no longer updating the game, the major downside with them has been the fact that they do not communicate at all. So if you're expecting updates or announcements or any sense in the slightest of what's going to happen with the game, you will be disappointed if you return now. By the same token, even though I understand it's a detriment that you have to have a Netflix subscription to play the new version, it has been really nice not having ads, not having in-app purchases, not being bombarded with those ridiculous, $100 for a Spark deals we used to see all the time in the Kabam days. That's been really cool too. And so my experience playing over the past year, I have to give it a positive grade overall, despite the many frustrations and challenges and problems that the game has had and will continue to have. Like I've said before, even though I have no idea if or when any further content will come, I do think the game will probably stay in their catalog for a while. Netflix is clearly taking a quantity over quality approach. And so, it's cool that you can just fire up the game whenever you want and do some battles and, just have some fun. Interestingly, one of the greatest sort of blessings of the new game has been the fact that the Sunday signature mission has been bugged. It's been glitched and never fixed for the entire year, which has very much worked out into our favor because of the fact that you can now get your bots up to max sig and max forge 100 times faster than you could in the old game. I mean, SIGs in general are much easier to come by in this new version. In the old game, 5-star SIGs were ridiculously rare. It could take years to get your bots to SIG 100. Now you can do it in a matter of weeks. Same thing with forging. You can forge up your bots in this new version in weeks, when it could take a year or 18 months in the old game. I mean, that has been really awesome as well. And of course, to say nothing of the community is so important because the community has always been one of the best parts of this game, and a lot of people did return, certainly not everyone. And even though a lot of people have left, and you need to be aware of that if you're going to play, it's a very small player base that has been bleeding players very gradually but consistently, especially over the past few months without any content. It has been wonderful playing with so many friends again. So, if you're new, you can certainly make friends. If you're returning, some people will still be here for you. And so that's been the experience of the game. And what I will say, for me personally, the greatest joy that I have had, and the reason that I'm still playing, because I am semi-retired, as I've said, I just play casually now, but the main reason I still play some is because I have used so many bots in this version that I did not use in the old version. Because remember, in the Kabam days, especially because it was so hard to get your bots maxed out, there were tons of bots that most of us didn't use, even people that had played for years. And so in this new version, I have not only used, but I've been able to max out, max forge, max sig, a lot of bots that I either never used or barely used in the old game, and that has been fantastic. And I've done that for bots that were released shortly before the Kabam version died, like bots like Sunstreaker, but I've also done that with other bots that I never really got a chance to use in the old game in any serious way, bots like Shockwave, Jazz, Ultra Magnus. There's a lot of bots that I never really used before that I've been able to use over the past year, and that's been a lot of fun. And so my final verdict is, because some people ask me, well, is it worth it to play it again? Or, what do you think about playing? Obviously, that's up to you. What I will say, though, is that if you're new or returning, you'll have enough content to keep you occupied, to have a lot of fun for maybe 4 to 6 months. But eventually, you're going to hit a wall, and you have to be aware of that. Okay? So if you are willing to dive into the game again, or from a fresh, new perspective, if you've never played before, you're going to have a lot of fun for a while. You're just eventually, though, going to run out of stuff to do, and you're going to start to get bored. That's the bottom line with this game. And that's especially true, by the way, given, I would say, my greatest disappointment with the game personally. Like I said, my greatest joy probably has been playing around with a lot of different bots and maxing out a lot of different bots. For me, the biggest disappointment has been the complete and utter lack of challenging content. because outside of the highest level AMs, there is nothing difficult to do. So the fact that we didn't get any LOC missions, any long missions with long fights, I think so many of us crave that. And those are great, not just because they're difficult and challenging for everyone, but because they're very repeatable. So you have to be aware of that, especially if you're a returning veteran. There's nothing difficult to do at all outside of the highest level AMs. And so if I were to give a final verdict on the game and say, okay, is it worth it to play? I would say yes, as long as you temper your expectations for what's going to happen. Because, like I said, it's very unlikely we're going to get more content, and even if we do, it'll be minimal. And so if you come into the game with no expectations of anything further, just to enjoy it again, to have fun with your favorite Transformers, to go through as much of the content as you can before you inevitably get bored, you're going to have a good time for a while. And if at that point you want to let it go, then you can. Or you can just semi-retire and just play here and there. So I still think it's worth it. This game has tons of problems. It always will. But it's a great game. And as a 30-plus year Transformers fan, yes, I am that old, and loving this kind of fighting game, it's been a fantastic experience. And it's been a real joy running my channel again for the past year. And as I've said, I will continue to post videos occasionally. So it's been awesome. Overall, it's been a lot of fun, even though at this point I am very bored with the game. But that's why I only play for fun at this point. So anyway, guys, I will leave it there for now. Do let me know how you are. Let me know if you have any questions, and we will be in touch again before too long. Take care.